Girlfriend's child called me dad, and now I'm unsure if I can handle this unexpected family commitment. 2 years ago, when I was 28, I started this relationship. Because she lives an hour away, we only see each other on weekends. She has her son Monday through Friday, and then on weekends, the boy's dad has him. So really, I only see him on Sunday nights when he's dropped off. I've always tried to be kind to her son. I'd play Minecraft with him, take him out, even went on vacation with both of them a couple of times. But, if I'm being totally honest, I never loved the idea of dealing with him. I did my best to treat him like he was my own, but he has consistently proven he's just a tough kid to handle. I won't get bogged down in all the details, but lately, things have shifted. Her son has been spending every weekend with us, and it's giving me a much clearer, and honestly, bleaker, vision of what my life could look like with her and her son. Now, I have zero time for myself. There's no sex, haven't had any in over a month. Sometimes, I even find myself just hiding in the bathroom, desperate for a few moments of peace. I'm actually beginning to dread weekends. Somehow, Mondays have become my favorite days, because at least I can look forward to a few hours alone after work. Realizing what my future could look like, this endless loop of responsibility and zero authority, honestly terrifies me. I've tried talking to my girlfriend about all this, but every time, it spirals into an argument. It's like I've ended up with all the burdens and expectations of a parent, yet none of the power or respect. The thing is, I deeply love my girlfriend. Outside of her son, we have a fantastic relationship, but now I'm facing the hard truth that it might be time to end things. I can't shake how awful this makes me feel. I mean, I knew from the start she was a single mother, but I kept ignoring certain red flags, telling myself things would improve, and yet they've only gotten worse. I can't help but feel like I've just wasted both of our time, and yet letting go feels impossible when I imagine how much I'll miss her. Deep down, though, I know what I have to do. Just to clarify, the red flags I ignored weren't about her being a mother, that was never the issue. But her parenting style doesn't quite line up with my own beliefs, and maybe that counts as a red flag. More than anything, I ignored all the red flags that come with becoming involved with a single mom, things that aren't really her fault. For instance, her ex is a deadbeat, never supporting their son financially, so if we stayed together, I know that burden would eventually land entirely on my shoulders, something I completely overlooked at the start. Should have been obvious, I know, but we all make mistakes. I swear, I have nothing but love for her, and soon I'll have the conversation that's needed. When I do, I'll update on how it went. Update 1. Long story short, I finally told her I was unhappy and asked if I could have some time to myself, maybe just one weekend a month where I could stay home and rest. She flat out refused. For her, it was all or nothing, no middle ground. I suggested couples therapy and even offered to pay for all of it, but she said she'd already had enough therapy and wasn't interested. After that, I told her we had to end things. The conversation was awful, there was so much crying on both sides until, in the end, she just hung up on me. To give some context, she's been through some terrible traumas in her life and is still grappling with much of it. I was genuinely worried about how she'd handle the breakup because of this. Still, she wouldn't talk to me, ignore my calls and texts completely. I figured that was it, and as painful as it felt, the right thing would be to leave her alone. The next morning she finally texted, asking me to come get my stuff from her place. I told her I didn't care about the stuff, she could throw it out for all I cared, because I didn't want to see her, not with the way things were. She pleaded, though, said she didn't want to look at it anymore either, and that this would be the last time we saw each other, so we should at least say goodbye. Reluctantly, I agreed. When I arrived, I was met by a pile of my things. I started hauling it all down to my car, trip after trip. On the final trip upstairs I found her sitting on the kitchen floor, crying her heart out. I sat next to her, not saying a word. After a few moments, she shifted away from me, just a few inches, but it felt like a mile. I looked at her and managed to whisper, "I should probably go, huh?" She just nodded. I got up and as I was leaving, I said, "I just wish you didn't think I was a horrible person." Suddenly she was yelling from the floor, ranting about how she'd done nothing wrong, and I simply couldn't take the yelling anymore. I said goodbye and walked out the door. As I made my way down the hallway, her sobs echoed so loudly I could hear them the whole way out. I'd barely made it to my car when she called me, already upset that I wouldn't talk. I tried to explain there was nothing left to say, but she just kept going, detailing all the ways in which I was awful and that I wasn't doing the right thing, refusing to accept any blame herself. I was already 15 minutes down the highway when she pleaded with me to come back and talk. I told her I couldn't, I was already on my way home, but she kept crying and begging me to turn around. All I could muster was, "I am sorry, I am so sorry," before I did something I'd never done to her. Before I hung up. She'd hung up on me more times than I could count, but this time I was the one to end the call. Instantly, my phone started blowing up with texts and calls. I couldn't handle it, I felt like I was losing my mind. I turned my phone off and left it off for a full day. When I finally switched it back on, there were more missed calls and a few short texts. I decided in that moment to block her. I keep wondering if I did the right thing. The guilt eats at me, hearing her cry was devastating. I genuinely want to be there for her, but I know if I try, I'll just get pulled right back into this relationship, and I desperately need out. I'm still in love with her, and it hurts. I know I can't be happy in this cycle. She sent me 2 emails after realizing she was blocked. I couldn't bring myself to read them at first, just saw the subject lines and left it at that. I didn't have the strength. Everything about this situation just sucks. Eventually, I caved and read the letters she sent. The first one completely caught me off guard. She was so apologetic, it made me tear up. It was deeply sweet and brought back so many memories of the good times. But then I read the second email, sent 12 hours later, and it was just the opposite. Nothing but blame thrown my way, all the things I supposedly did wrong. Oddly, I'm glad I read the second letter, because if I'd only read the first, who knows how I'd be feeling right now. The first reminded me of what I loved about her, but the second one grounded me, reminding me why I left. Now, I'm sticking to my decision. I'm staying strong, blocking her on every new number she somehow digs up, even when she started calling me from her work phone. Had to Google it to confirm, but yeah, it was her. I blocked that too. I never imagined this would be one of the hardest things in my life. But, in the end, she wouldn't let me have a weekend off. Instead, she gave me a lifetime. Update 2. I just got out of a 2.5-year relationship. My ex is a 27-year-old woman, and I'm a 30-year-old man. I was the one who ended things because I desperately needed more time for myself. The dynamic between us had stopped feeling fulfilling, and it seemed like my life was just revolving around her wants and needs. We spent all our time together doing what she wanted, and honestly, I started to lose that sense of who I was outside the relationship. The lack of sex didn't help either. For a while, we were intimate maybe once a week, but during the last 3 or 4 months, that dwindled even further, sometimes once every other week, then eventually just once a month. Another big factor was that she's a single mother, and trying to step into that step-parent role was much harder than I ever expected. That was honestly the tipping point for me. I just couldn't do it anymore. The breakup itself was tough, but the strangest thing happened. Right after, I felt amazing. I was finally free from all the drama, the never-ending obligations, and the stress. But that first week alone hit me harder than any breakup I've ever had. I was an absolute mess. Every day, I ended up breaking down in tears, sometimes sobbing until I could barely breathe. One night, I just completely lost it. I felt this crushing regret over my decision, missing her so much it hurt. I tried everything: therapy, talking to my family, friends. None of it really brought me any peace. I found myself longing just to hear her voice again, to see her smile, to ask how her day was. During the breakup, I was laser focused on everything that wasn't working. Now she was gone, all I could see was the good we'd lost. I tried to remind myself of why I ended things, tried to replay all the reasons we couldn't work, but every minute I fought the urge to call or text her, or even drive over and beg her to take me back. The feeling was so overwhelming, like I had hit the lowest point of my life. The idea of dating again felt impossible. I had zero interest in anyone else. Just thinking about being with someone new made me ache for her even more. What if no one else ever makes me laugh like she did? What if I never find another person as fun to be around? My head was spinning with confusion, pain, longing. I kept telling myself to be strong and stay away, but inside, I was completely torn up by it all. I hope that talking about my experience might help someone else who's struggling with letting go. But most importantly, I wanted to capture just how hard it is to walk away, and how what you miss can haunt you in the most unexpected ways. That was just after the breakup. Picking up from there, some time has passed. She was a single mom, and getting over her has been harder than I ever prepared for. Her little boy was 7, and for 2.5 years, he was a part of my world too. We lived sort of long distance, about an hour apart, so I'd usually see her on weekends. When the relationship ended, I felt that surge of freedom, finally having my weekends to myself, no more constant negotiations about what we were doing or where we had to go. However, within that very first week, the weight of missing her crashed in hard. I couldn't stop thinking about the last time I saw her. She was sitting on her kitchen floor, inconsolable, sobbing in a way I'd never seen from her before. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw that image and heard her cries. It broke me all over again. I wanted so badly to reach out, but I held back. Eventually, I did find a reason. I messaged her asking if I could write her son a goodbye letter, since I'd never had the chance to say a real goodbye. I was honestly surprised by how much I missed him. Our connection wasn't perfect, but he mattered a lot to me, and it stung to think I'd never get to watch him grow up. She thanked me for the letter and was cordial about it. Then, back to silence. 6 weeks passed, and I was still missing her. I had nights where I'd break down, sometimes ending up in my basement, crying as I lifted weights at 1 a.m., desperate to sweat out the pain until my body just collapsed from exhaustion. On one of those nights, I wrote her a letter that said everything I wanted to say, that I wanted her back, that I'd fix everything, that things would be different this time. But I never sent it. Writing those letters, then deleting them, became a strange kind of therapy for me. But then, just 3 days after the unsent letter, she called. I didn't realize it was her at first. Her contact info had been deleted and blocked, but somehow the call came through. I answered, and there she was. Her tone was strange, cheerful, casual. She started talking about her car. Her Toyota's window tint failed inspection. Could I help her with it since I'd been the one who had it done? Just a practical favor. My heart was pounding. All I wanted in that moment was to see her again, to be near her. But I forced myself to stop and talk instead. I told her I'd help if I could, but that I needed to say some things first. The floodgates opened. I told her about the hell I'd been through, how much I missed her, how therapy and journaling had become my coping mechanisms. I just laid it all out. But when I asked how she was, the truth stunned me. She told me she was regressing, her own word. She'd been going out, drinking, partying, hanging out with friends, shopping for new dresses, getting ready for nights out. She sounded so different, almost shallow, calling me things like love and sweetie, in a way that just felt off and almost mocking. I asked if she missed me, and she said she did, but that she was doing well. She shared that therapy for her was focused on her past trauma, and that she barely thought of me at all. When I asked about her son, she told me he still had my letter, still asked about me, missed me a lot. In that moment, it was obvious he missed me even more than she did. I ended the call by telling her where she could get her car fixed, gave her the contact at a shop I trust, and said they'd take care of her. She thanked me. That was it, we hung up. Afterward, I just sat there, staring blankly at my wall, mind completely scrambled. I was so hurt, so angry. How could she have moved on so easily? Why wasn't she hurting like me? How was she out there, living her best life, while I was wrecked and broken? But slowly, that pain turned into something else, appreciation and even relief. She wasn't my problem anymore. Those things she was doing, the behaviors that once kept me awake at night, none of that was on me to fix. The person I loved, the girl I imagined every night, doesn't even exist anymore. It hit me like a train, she's gone, and the woman on the phone was someone completely different. Suddenly, a realization hit me like a bolt of lightning. I had been trapped in a mental prison of my own making. For so long, I believed she had put me there, held me captive with her absence or indifference, but the truth was much simpler. I was the jailer all along. A big turning point came, oddly enough, after I watched The Matrix for the first time ever. I know, it's almost criminal to have waited this long. But as the film unfolded, I started seeing my own reality in those layers of illusion. What we think is real often isn't. I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but that movie made me stop and think. The truth is, there is no girl, there is no spoon. As weird as that sounds, it helped me snap out of it. I realized this person I was holding on to, aching for, wasn't real, at least not the version of her I had meticulously built up in my head. She looks like her, sounds like her, but she isn't her. Just like Jocko said in his breakup video, it's all too easy to idolize someone until they become more fantasy than reality. Bill Burr had it right on his podcast too. He talked about breakups, the pain, and how around the 6-week mark, they always reach out. He wasn't wrong. 3 weeks ago, everything changed. For the first time since it all fell apart, I began to feel genuinely at peace. My mind quieted. Sure, there are moments when I still miss her, and yes, I sometimes feel a pang for her son, who had become a real part of my life. But happiness has finally crept back in. I freed myself from that emotional prison. As much as I pleaded and hoped that she'd be the one to rescue me, it was never something she could do. I had to be my own savior. Just 2 nights ago, out of nowhere, her cousin texted me. She's 21, and we'd always shared a good rapport, joking around whenever she visited. She reached out, saying she'd heard about the breakup and wasn't sure she should say anything, but couldn't help herself. She told me she'd really miss me, and that she didn't think my ex would ever find anyone to truly replace me. Hearing that her whole family loved me hit me with a bittersweet satisfaction. I'm doing great right now. I'm ready to start dating again, finally moving forward and feeling stronger than ever. Besides that oddly therapeutic phone call, here are a few things that really helped pull me out of the wreckage and back into the light. Update 3. I thought I was done with all this drama, but life has a twisted sense of humor. 3 months have passed since that strange phone call with my ex, and I genuinely believed I'd moved on. I started dating again, nothing serious, just casual meetups through apps. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again. Then last Friday happened. I was at a local brewery with some friends when I spotted a familiar face across the room. It was Jake, my ex's brother-in-law, her sister's husband. We'd always gotten along well during family gatherings. He saw me too and came over, looking uncomfortable as hell. After some awkward small talk, he pulled me aside. Look man, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but... He paused, clearly wrestling with himself. Sarah's been asking about you. A lot, and honestly, she's not doing as well as she pretended on that phone call. My stomach dropped. I didn't want to hear this. Jake continued, she's been showing up to family dinners drunk, crying about how she made the biggest mistake of her life. Last week, she broke down completely at my daughter's birthday party. Had to leave early. He shook his head. And her son. Jesus, that kid keeps asking when you're coming back. It's heartbreaking. I felt that familiar knot forming in my chest. Jake, I can't, there's more, he interrupted. She's been seeing this guy, Marcus. Real piece of work. He's not good with her son. Like, really not good. The kid called my wife crying because Marcus yelled at him for spilling juice. Sarah just stood there and let it happen. Everything inside me went cold. That little boy had been through enough. Jake must have seen something in my face because he quickly added, "I'm not telling you this to get you back together. I'm telling you because someone needs to know what's happening to that kid." I spent the entire weekend torn apart by this information. Part of me wanted to call her immediately, but I knew that would be a mistake. Instead, I did something I never thought I'd do. I reached out to her cousin, the one who'd texted me a few weeks back. When I called, she seemed surprised but happy to hear from me. I carefully probed about Sarah and her son without revealing what Jake had told me. What she shared made my blood boil. "Oh my God, you haven't heard?" she said. "Marcus moved in with them last month. That poor little guy has been having nightmares again, just like when his parents first divorced. And Sarah? She's different around Marcus. Quieter. Like she's walking on eggshells." I couldn't sleep that night. By Tuesday morning, I made a decision that surprised even me. I called Sarah directly. She answered on the second ring, and her voice was shaky. I didn't think I'd ever hear from you again. "We need to talk," I said simply. "In person." There was a long pause. "I can't. Marcus wouldn't. This isn't about us, Sarah. This is about your son." The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then, barely a whisper, "Thursday afternoon. Marcus will be at work. But just for coffee. That's all." As I hung up, I realized I was walking straight back into the chaos I'd fought so hard to escape. But some things are more important than your own peace of mind. That little boy deserved better than what he was getting. Thursday couldn't come fast enough, and yet I dreaded it completely. I had no idea what I was going to say to her, or what kind of person I'd find sitting across from me. The Sarah I'd fallen in love with, or the stranger I'd spoken to on that phone call months ago? Either way, I knew my quiet, drama-free life was about to get turned upside down all over again. Update 4. Thursday came, and I found myself sitting in a corner booth at the same coffee shop where Sarah and I had our first date 3 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. I got there early, nursing a black coffee and rehearsing what I'd say. When she walked in 20 minutes late, I barely recognized her. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing an oversized sweater that seemed to swallow her whole. But it was her demeanor that struck me most. The confident, vibrant woman I'd known was gone, replaced by someone who kept glancing over her shoulder like she expected to be caught doing something wrong. "Hi," she said, sliding into the seat across from me without making eye contact. "Sarah." I kept my voice neutral. "How are you?" She laughed, but it was hollow. "Fine. Great, actually. Marcus and I are really happy." The lie hung in the air between us. I could see her hands trembling slightly as she wrapped them around her coffee cup. "I'm not here about us," I said gently. "I'm worried about your son." Her facade cracked instantly. Her eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I saw the woman I'd fallen in love with. He's adjusting. It's hard when there are changes, but, Sarah, stop." I leaned forward. "I know Marcus moved in. I know your son's having nightmares again." She stared at me, then suddenly her expression hardened. "Who told you that? Jake? My sister? They don't understand what it's like to be alone, to finally find someone who yells at a 7-year-old for spilling juice?" The words hit her like a physical blow. She sank back in her chair, and when she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "It was just once. He was having a bad day at work, and Tommy was being difficult." "No." I couldn't keep the anger out of my voice. "There's no excuse for that. You know there isn't." She broke down then, sobbing into her hands. "I don't know what to do anymore. I'm 37, I can't keep starting over. Marcus says he loves me, that we can be a family, but what, Sarah? But he's not you." The admission seemed to surprise her as much as it did me. "He doesn't read bedtime stories. He doesn't build Lego castles on Sunday mornings. He doesn't." She wiped her eyes. "Tommy asks about you every single day. He keeps your goodbye letter under his pillow." My chest tightened. "Sarah, you have to. I can't leave him." The words tumbled out in a rush. "I can't be alone again. I can't handle the dating apps and the rejections and wondering if I'll ever find someone who'll accept both of us. Marcus isn't perfect, but at least he's here." I stared at her, seeing clearly for the first time how broken she'd become. This wasn't the strong, independent single mother I'd fallen for. This was someone who'd rather accept less than she deserved than face the possibility of being alone. "What if I told you that you didn't have to be alone?" The words came out before I could stop them. She looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath. "Maybe we could try again. Slowly. On my terms this time." The hope that flickered in her eyes made my stomach turn. I knew I was making a mistake, but the thought of that little boy suffering because of her poor choices made the decision for me. "Really?" she whispered. You'd take us back?" "Not us. Not right away. I had to be clear about this. You'd have to leave Marcus first. You'd have to prove that Tommy's well-being comes first. And we'd have to start from scratch, dating, getting to know each other again, building trust." She nodded eagerly. Yes, I can do that." But even as she agreed, something in her eyes made me uneasy. It was too quick, Too desperate, like she was agreeing to anything just to avoid being alone. We talked for another hour, establishing boundaries and expectations. She promised to end things with Marcus by the weekend. I made it clear that any relationship we might rebuild would be entirely different from what we'd had before. I wouldn't be the pushover I'd been, and her son's needs would always come first. As I walked to my car, I felt a mixture of hope and dread. Maybe I could save that little boy from a toxic situation. Maybe Sarah and I could build something healthier this time. Or maybe I was walking straight into the same trap that had nearly destroyed me the first time. I was about to find out which. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Thank you for giving us another chance. I won't let you down this time. I promise." But it was the message that came an hour later that made my blood run cold. It was from a number I didn't recognize. "Stay away from my girlfriend or you'll regret it. This is your only warning." Marcus had found out about our meeting. And apparently, Sarah hadn't told him she was planning to leave. Update 5. That text from Marcus sent ice through my veins. I screenshot it immediately and called Sarah, but it went straight to voicemail. Then another message came through. "Saw the coffee cups in your car. 2 of them." Sarah told me everything. My hands were shaking as I tried calling her again. Nothing. I sat in my driveway for 20 minutes, debating whether to drive to her place. Finally, she called back. "I'm sorry," she whispered, and I could hear she was crying. He went through my phone. "Saw your contact. He's really angry." "Sarah, where are you? Are you safe?" "I'm in Tommy's room. Marcus is downstairs, drinking. He's been yelling for an hour." Her voice was so quiet I had to strain to hear her. I tried to tell him it was over between us, but the line went dead. I called back immediately. No answer. I tried texting her, but the messages wouldn't deliver. Either her phone was dead or Marcus had taken it. That's when I made the decision that changed everything. I drove to her house. The ride there felt like the longest hour of my life. When I pulled up to her street, I parked a block away and walked. The house was mostly dark except for a flickering light from what I knew was the living room TV. Marcus's truck was in the driveway. I was about to knock when I heard raised voices through the thin walls. Marcus was shouting something about that loser ex and Sarah was trying to calm him down. Then I heard something that made my blood boil. Tommy crying, asking his mom what was happening. That's when I called the police. While I waited for them to arrive, I crept closer to the living room window. What I saw made me sick. Marcus had Sarah backed against the wall, his face inches from hers, yelling while Tommy sat on the stairs in his pajamas, tears streaming down his face. The little boy looked terrified. The cops showed up just as Marcus grabbed Sarah's arm. I met them at the curb and quickly explained the situation, the threatening text, the phone call cutting out, what I was witnessing through the window. They knocked on the door, and everything went quiet inside. Marcus answered, trying to play it cool, but I could see his hands shaking. The officers asked to speak with Sarah alone, and when she came to the door, the relief on her face was unmistakable. Tommy ran straight to her and wouldn't let go. Here's where things get complicated. While the police were taking statements, Sarah pulled me aside. "There's something I never told you," she said, glancing around nervously. "About why I really couldn't take time for yourself when you asked for it before." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "Marcus and we were already talking back then. Not physically, but..." She couldn't meet my eyes. "He was telling me that if you really loved me, you wouldn't need breaks from us. That asking for time away meant you were planning to leave anyway." The betrayal hit me like a truck. "So you were emotionally cheating while we were together?" "It wasn't like that. He was just a friend from work who listened when I complained about our relationship. But when you asked for that weekend alone, he convinced me it was the beginning of the end." She was crying now. "He said I should end things first, before you could hurt me more." Everything clicked into place. The sudden change in her attitude during our last fight. The immediate refusal to compromise. The way she'd seemed almost prepared for the breakup conversation. "So you ended our relationship because another man told you to?" I felt dizzy with anger and hurt. I thought I was protecting myself. "Marcus said he'd been through the same thing with his ex-wife, that you'd just keep asking for more space until you left completely." She grabbed my arm. "But I was wrong. So wrong. These past months with him have been hell. He's nothing like what I thought." The police finished their report. Marcus was given a warning about harassment and told to stay away from me. He left that night, taking his things, but not before glaring at me with pure hatred. I knew this wasn't over. Sarah begged me to stay the night, for Tommy's sake, she said. The kid had been through enough trauma for one evening. Against my better judgment, I agreed to sleep on the couch. That night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to find Sarah sitting in the armchair across from me. "I can't sleep," she said quietly. "I keep thinking about what I put you through. What I put Tommy through." We talked until dawn. She told me everything about Marcus, how controlling he'd become, how he'd isolated her from her family, how he'd started drinking more and taking his frustrations out on Tommy. She admitted that the phone call months ago, when she'd seemed so happy and carefree, was all an act. She'd been trying to convince herself she was better off without me. "I never stopped loving you," she whispered as the sun came up. "Even when I was with him, I was pretending he was you." The old me would have melted at those words. But something had changed in me during those months of healing. I could see the situation clearly now. Sarah, you didn't leave Marcus because you realized you loved me. You left him because he became abusive. That's not the same thing. She looked stricken. What do you mean? I mean you need to learn to be alone. To figure out who you are without a man defining your worth. The words felt harsh coming out, but they needed to be said. Tommy needs a mother who makes decisions based on what's best for him, not on her fear of being single. We spent the weekend together, but it felt different this time. I helped Tommy with his Legos, took him to the park, read him stories. But I also watched Sarah carefully. Every time my phone buzzed, she tensed up, expecting it to be another woman. When I mentioned meeting friends for drinks next week, she immediately asked if she could come. The insecurity was still there, maybe worse than before. Sunday evening, as I was getting ready to leave, Tommy hugged me tight and whispered, "Are you going to be my dad now?" The question broke my heart. This innocent kid had been through so much upheaval, and here I was, potentially about to add more to his confusion. That's when Sarah said something that changed everything. "Actually, Tommy, we need to talk about that. Come sit with mommy." I watched in amazement as she had an age-appropriate conversation with her son about how adults sometimes need time to figure things out, how she needed to work on being the best mommy she could be first, and how that meant not having boyfriends for a while. "But I miss him," Tommy said, pointing at me. "I know, baby. Maybe he can visit sometimes, as a friend, while mommy figures some things out." After Tommy went to bed, Sarah walked me to my car. "I meant what I said in there," she told me. "I think I need to be alone for a while. Really alone. Figure out how to make decisions without needing a man to validate them." I was shocked. This wasn't the desperate, clingy woman from the coffee shop. "What changed?" I asked. She smiled sadly. "Watching you these past few days. Seeing how you set boundaries, how you put Tommy's needs first even when it was hard for you. I realized I want to be that kind of person too." We agreed to stay in touch, but as friends only. I could visit Tommy occasionally, help him with homework, be a positive male figure in his life without the romantic complications. It's been 2 weeks since then, and it's working better than I expected. Sarah started therapy again, real therapy this time, not just trauma counseling. Tommy seems more stable. And me? I'm learning that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to be someone's safety net. But last night, something happened that's made me question everything again. I got a call from Sarah's sister. "You need to know something," she said. "Marcus has been watching Sarah's house. And yours. He's not letting this go." As if on cue, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole to see a police officer standing on my porch, and my blood ran cold. "Sir, we need to talk to you about Marcus Reynolds. There's been an incident."